Happy New Year!
Happy New
Happy New
Year.
Year!
Nice to
I'm
see you all.
I know. It's so awesome to be back in January. I feel like it's that fresh start. It's like September and January. It's like we're going to get things going. It's the opportunity to change and everything. And I am so excited that my friend Andrew is joining us today. We'll do a formal introduction. I know many people know who he is. There's not really a intro needed, but ladies, how's everybody? Everyone's doing well?
We're good.
Very
Yeah.
good.
Great start to the new year. It would be nice if we had a little bit more sunshine. It's been a
We had
little,
some yesterday.
I was in the window trying to get some sun.
Some vitamin D.
It's snowing here. We have huge snowflakes right now. Big ones coming down.
Yeah, I'm in a bit of a winter wonderland myself, but yes, some sunshine would be nice. Ontario problems.
Happy New Year. So I know
Happy
today
New
we have quite a large audience that have signed up to join us. I'd love to know in the chat where you're watching from. I know the four of us are really in Ontario. Andrew, you're in the nice, you're not in sunny Florida right now, but where are you
I'm
today?
not. But I didn't want to say anything. I was like, I'll let them have this. This is their moment. But like 65 degrees and sunny in Florida is not that bad. So
Yeah,
sorry.
we don't feel bad for you. We don't.
Valley's
You
in
shouldn't.
Florida.
It's a
Hi,
charmed life.
Kelly.
We can't
Oh,
relate.
Mexico. Yay.
Look, if we need to have a live event sometime, yes, I want to come down to Tampa. I would love to host you all, and we can do some live recordings and do all the fun stuff. It'd be great.
Love it.
Immediately, yes.
I think it's
January.
yeah, it's in our schedule. No problem.
Anytime.
Okay.
Dear Alberta. So nice.
It is great. Looks from all over. That's
From all over. Well, while these are coming in, I'm just going to give just some very brief instructions. Carrie mentioned we do have a very large group today, which we're really excited about. Just to help us keep on top of the questions that are coming in, if you have a question that you'd like us to ask Andrew, if you could use that Q&A, that'll just help us to have a system in place. If you're just saying hello or letting us know where you're from, feel free to use that chat button. At the end of the episode, those of you who have registered will receive a CE certificate. Anybody who is watching through our Facebook live feed, send us an email at info@rdhu.ca, and we can give you instructions on how to access your CE certificate. So I'm going to step back and hand the microphone over to Kathleen, who's going to introduce our guest, but I'm very excited. I'm also nervous, but I'm very excited about today's show. So Kath, I'm a little starstruck, a little bit.
They're ridiculous.
A lot, actually.
I noticed a chat came in. Beth, I love your new hairstyle.
Oh, well, thank you.
What about mine?
She always comments.
Your haircut looks great, Andrew.
I told you, Carrie, right? I told you I went and got this haircut specifically for this.
You
so
did.
I know Zoom's not doing me justice, but it's pretty on point if I do say so. But whatever. Sorry, continue on.
Look awesome. Well, we're so happy to have you here. Okay, so I'm going to just read Andrew's bio. So Andrew Johnston has been a dental hygienist for almost 15 years in private and DSO settings. After several years working clinically, he went back to school to get a degree in business management to learn how to further improve chairside and the business side. Strategy and improving health outcomes based on systems and KPIs are what drives him. He has served in various leadership roles, loves to mentor and train teams, and enjoys being the host of the popular A Tale of Two Hygienists podcast. All right, so Andrew, we are so excited to have you here. I had the pleasure of listening to your podcast yesterday, and I just find you to be such an authentic, awesome person. So thank you so much for being here. I find your background is very interesting. You know, many dental hygienists will take the KOL or speaker route, but you went towards the business side. So what made you go toward the business side, and what sort of leadership opportunities have led you there?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's so weird kind of to be on this side, like the interviewee. I keep touching my face, I notice, because I'm like so nervous of like the questions. So but thank you for having me. I'll tell you, so it's weird though. I think so growing up, business has always been really just interesting to me. So I have an uncle, he was running of all things like like a vacation spot in Alaska for people to go fishing and things like that. And there's some guide services that were being run out of that. And they had like a little store there. And so there was all these little like micro businesses within this kind of bigger business. So at the age of 15, he's like, hey, come on up, like come work for me for a summer. And so I went and did that. And I did, because he's a bunch of RVs there. So you have to like use the truck that, sucks out the gray water and stuff. And that, it was an interesting eye-opening experience that you can make money from all these little different things. But in order to do that, you have to have good marketing. You have to have the people show up. You have to do add-on sales. What does that look like? They would go to Costco and they would go buy the big Costco muffins, and then they'd resell it for like twice the price. It was all of these things were just very interesting. My father also growing up, he was, I don't know if Toys R Us is big in Canada, but it was big for a while there. Right. And so he worked for kind of like a subsidiary of Toys R Us, and he basically ran at different points, either a huge district in the Pacific Northwest, or at one point, I think he's like a West Coast manager, Washington, Oregon, California, and some of the other states. He's always looking at metrics, KPIs. His own stores would always just be killing everybody else's. And he said it's because of this one little thing that we did, or we were treating the customer better, or we were being honest, we were being authentic, we were doing all of these things. So I think that like between like all my family members saying, hey, business, 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 it just kind of like lights the fire for me. Hygiene wasn't really the game plan for me. I think for many people, it wasn't really the game plan. My brother's a dental hygienist as well. Shout out to Mike. He said, look, little brother, we're going to do this thing, and we're going to be in dentistry. And I said, okay, sounds good. I didn't really have a plan at the time. And so he kind of got us into it. As I was in dental hygiene, I'm like, you know what? Like, this is not that much different than retail, right? Our customers, our patients that come in, are there and they want an authentic connection with you. They want you to provide a service. They don't want to be taken advantage of. They want what they're paying for is what they should actually get. There's so many components that kind of moved back and forth. When I left private practice and I went to kind of more of the DSO setting, I was really able then to look at what the metrics were important for them. And the DSO that I went to right after that was like one of the best ones I've ever could have went to, because their mission, their purpose was pure. And I think it had real intention of just helping someone get healthy, as opposed to maybe some of the other DSOs, which maybe we'll talk about that in a little bit. Not DSO, all DSOs are the same, but their KPIs, their metrics that they measured was how fast can we get someone in if they pick up the phone and need us right away? Are we there for our community? Yes or no? That's a great metric, right? Like, and so my job was then, okay, well, what am I doing as a dental hygienist to help facilitate that metric? How can I make sure that I'm being efficient with my appointments, that I'm communicating to the patient the need so they'll come back for their recall? There's so many things that I can control within the appointment or within kind of like the bigger practice. And then, I look at some of my doctor's metrics. I love my doctor. I want him to do very well. How can I help Dr. Pham? Shout out, buddy. How can I help Dr. Pham at the time get really good at his metrics? Is there anything I can possibly do? And there's a lot, actually. I can tee up that treatment from and this isn't about like production numbers. We didn't actually measure production in this one, but how can I make sure that that patient is getting the care that they need, getting the restorative treatment that they need? You guys call it freeze, right? Can we numb up our patient for that doctor that same day? Can we do this, and facilitate a quicker experience for our patient? So, I mean, sorry, I know I'm kind of rambling, but it's like there's so many points along the way that metrics or business are integrated with our regular everyday care that we give to our people anyway. And so it was fascinating to see when I look at some of these KPIs and people were just not getting their patients to come back. I'm like, why are your patients not coming back? Like, this is like, what did you do that they're not coming back? There's something that you could have controlled better. And so then I got into like the mentoring. I'm like, okay, well, this is what I do. Give it a shot. See if that works for you. Or, hey, so-and-so over here told me this really cool thing. Maybe try that next time. See if that works for you. And so that's kind of like, I guess, my gateway into like more of a mentoring kind of a thing is learning all these different things from everyone, just disseminating the information, which is, getting the podcast is getting cool stuff from everyone and disseminating that information. So
I love
Right.
how
Quality
I
is
love how you said, are we there for our community? Because I
Yeah.
think the way you phrase that is so authentic and so real to so many hygienists. It's like we want to show up, we want to be present, we want to be available. We need to make sure our schedule allows for that so we can see patients when they're in need. And we've got the
Yeah.
flexibility in our schedule that we can fit them in when we think that 3-month recall is needed. Oh crap, I don't have, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Oh no, I don't have time in 3 months for my appointment.
I'm gonna drop so many
we gotta-
craps and sucks on this thing. I'm so sorry, but like you guys are too professional a little bit. Like, let's come down to Andrew's level
Yeah,
of
it's supposed to be kind
being
of
not
off the cuff,
professional.
but we're
Yeah.
also professional. But you know what I love is when you follow those KPIs, when it's about the human connection and the caring, all the other things fall in place. So all the other
Absolutely.
KPIs that other DSOs are looking at, that's all going to come in place if you start with the people, right?
Well,
And
it's
could you just explain what a KPI is? I think that there might be some
Oh,
people that aren't
yeah,
familiar with
sorry.
that acronym. No, that's okay.
Yeah. So a KPI is key performance indicator. So it's also called a metric, or it's also called a stat, or it's also called a number or whatever. So the interesting thing about these KPIs or these things. So, okay, we'll go back to the community aspect because I do want to kind of touch on that point for just a minute. Sometimes I think that we go into our office because maybe we're driving a half hour, maybe we're driving 45 minutes away, and we don't really think about who we're serving. We're like, okay, we're inside these walls, right? And we're treating this patient. We don't think, okay, well, that patient has a family that lives 4 blocks down. And in that family, grandma or grandpa aren't getting seen because they don't have health insurance or medical dental insurance. We're not really thinking past our 4 walls, really. We're not really thinking past our op a lot of times. And so that's kind of where we are failing.
Mhm.
And if we can integrate KPI, so a really cool KPI would be a referral KPI. No one's doing that. No one's measuring that whatsoever. But how great would it be? And it's not because the business is going to grow and we're going to get all this more money because we're treating more people. It's this patient A, loves Andrew the hygienist. Patient A is going to get their family to come in to see Andrew or the doctor or whoever in the office that they love. The practice is going to grow. Great. That's the business side of it. But what we're doing is we're helping that community that's close to the clinic, right? I think that we forget about that. And I just want to kind of circle back to that because I think that's really, really important. I forgot what the second part I was going to say was.
Well, it's
That's-
about recognizing that your patient population, right? Like if
Yeah.
you're in a community that say was seniors is now turning over to young people with young families,
Mhm.
the education that is required to those people is different than, the people who are moving on, right?
Absolutely.
So you have to recognize those trends, and your office can then customize their focus points, right?
Yeah.
And all on the same page on education and watching out for current things. I think when people get stuck in not understanding what their patient population or their community is, then they're missing out on the current trends that are happening to those
Right.
clients.
I think so. To your point, where KPIs or metrics or measurements would come into that would be, okay, you're seeing 65% perio. So that's a metric you should be looking at. It's like, of the people that are coming in, what percentage of your patients are having perio therapy, perio maintenance, or scaling root plane, whatever you want to call it, but just some sort of perio treatment. If you're at 65% because you're seeing a lot of older patients, that makes a lot of sense. But if your demographic is moving and skewing maybe either younger or educational, or maybe probably not so much regional because your office is going to be kind of one office. But so demographics are probably going to be very similar, but taking in more information. So not necessarily a KPI at this point, but data points of, age, ethnicity, looking at their education levels, looking at all of these things, bringing all of this in, you're seeing that 65% come down. Now you have a reason. So there's a lot of coaches out there that will come into your practice and they'll say, okay, look, you're supposed to be at least 50% perio. Like that's kind of the stat that everyone says, like half of your patients should be a perio type patient. Great. But do you actually know my patients? Am I right next to a college? And are those all my patients are all college students? Guess what? Probably not going to be doing a lot of that, but I might be having a lot of, restorative work because of all the Mountain Dew and so I don't know, whatever they're doing to stay awake, the energy drinks and stuff.
Yep.
It might be a different metric that we're measuring because of the community that we're treating. And we have to understand, we have to be integrated into that community, because if we're not, and this is where I think DSOs maybe don't do a great job because they're too corporate, right? It's like just a Walmart came in and just, hopefully Walmart's not going to censor your video because I said this, but like, Walmart came in, they're not really part of the community. They're just there to sell you goods at a reasonably low price, so like that's what they want. Dental offices shouldn't be that way.
And
Right.
somebody's asking, what is a DSO? So that's a dental support organization. So DSO is like, it's the corporations, there's a few of them in Canada and many more in the States, but it's the dental corporations.
Yeah, I like your definition of it, because there's dental service and there's dental support. It should be dental support, like you said. So HR, billing, all of like the insurance stuff, that's what the DSO should be handling. And so if there's multiple locations, then sometimes when you're trying to find a hygienist, it's really hard because you don't have someone dedicated to finding hygienists, right? You keep, as a single practice, you probably can't afford to hire someone to hire more people. That's not a thing. But you can have recruiters in office at a centrally located, wherever in the corporate, and their job is recruiting talent, dental talent. Could be front office, back office, doesn't really matter. All of your billing specialists, all of those people, taking the tasks away from the clinicians who should be treating patients and putting it now on these people who are specialized in this. And because they're specialized in it, they should be more efficient at doing it too. So they should get through it a little bit quicker. But yeah, DSOs, dental support organization, dental service organization, however you know it, but it's usually multiple locations.
So, KPIs sometimes get this really bad review. And I can tell you, I've been in hygiene 20 years. When I first came out, I'm like, it's not about the numbers. I'm about the patient. But the truth of it is, the more I look at my numbers, the more I look at some of those stats, even if it's a referral option or, a 3-month recall or a recare, I'm like, those are good numbers to look at. So Andrew, can you give us your kind of opinion on some of these numbers? Because I don't think that they deserve the bad rep they get. Sometimes it shows the value of what you're bringing or how you're treating or caring for your clients or your patients that way.
Can I tell you? So I want to preface this by just saying, if your metric is how many fluorides you're doing a day or a week or whatever, that's the dumbest metric I think I've ever heard of my entire life. Do we all believe in fluoride? Yeah, we do. Like as professionals, this is what we're out for, right? Great. I have no problem with that. But I'll push back though. If you have a 40-year-old in your chair who's never had decay, no incipiencies, good, healthy habits, why are you putting fluoride varnish on that patient? I can't justify that, right? So where these KPIs, like the importance of them is looking at, okay, we will have, I think fluoride varnish need to be measured. I want to be very clear about that. We do need a KPI for fluoride varnish, but it should be in regards to our moderate, high, or extreme caries risk patients, which is then going to make you do a little bit more work. I'm so sorry, but you have to evaluate, and you do have to put your people into boxes. You have to give them the treatment that they need. No different than what we already do for our perio assessments, right? But we also be doing caries assessments. I think some of the really good KPIs that we look at, one that also rubs hygienists the wrong way, is how many patients they're seeing every day. So from a business perspective, let me back up. How many patients you're seeing, and also the mix of the patients. So going back to that perio versus prophy patient. If you are seeing, if you have an 8-hour day and you're seeing 3 patients in a day, you're probably not optimizing your time. You're also probably not optimizing what's best for the patient, because they don't, if those 3 are spread out over 8 hours, like that's really bad. But also you're not doing what's right for the business. At the same time though, you can't have 8 patients in a day, because what does that tell you? If you have an hour block and you're doing 8 prophies, you're not treating the right populations the way they should be, because it should be half of your schedule should be perio. And so I think looking at some of these metrics and saying, look, these aren't bad, but it helps you like conceptualize, are we treating to the standard of care? The AAP tells us, the American Academy of Periodontology tells us what these different boxes of health should be. And so looking at how many patients you have in a day, what does that makeup look like? Of the unhealthy patients, whether it's perio or not perio, are you doing adjunctive services is what we call it, but are you doing additional things beyond just scaling and root planing? What does that look like? I think one that kind of gets not checked off in private practices is like oral cancer screening.
Mhm.
So I think a lot of us do, the palpations, the head and neck exam. So I'd call it more like a head and neck exam as opposed to like an oral cancer screening. They're just checking for lumps and bumps. But are they also using additional devices? And I'm not on here to like advocate for devices or yes or no, but I think that is a service that should be measured.
Mhm.
I think I said this on a recent episode. I said it only take one time for you to find one person that has oral cancer for you to be a believer in these devices, and you change that one person's life. One of my best friends, he tells a story about he was really close for years with this person, and she passed away in the span of 8 months from discovery to passed away. It doesn't give us very much grace time to be able to intercept and reverse the disease. And so the importance of finding oral cancer is a huge, huge, huge importance. And so I think things like that are ones that we need to probably look into a little bit more and accept into our practices and be grateful that we get to do that service for our patients.
Andrew, I love that you have so much knowledge as far as, metrics go in the business of dental hygiene. And I think that that's a topic that a lot of us as dental hygienists don't necessarily know a lot about. So it's been really informative just to kind of hear that side of the equation. But I know from being a listener of your podcast since 2015 that you have a wealth of knowledge in many, many areas. I know going back to sort of the beginning, I know that your podcast was one of the ones that really opened my eyes to topics like xylitol, myofunctional therapy. It rekindled my love for lasers. So you really do have a wealth of knowledge, and you've had so many guests on your show. But one of the areas that I would love to ask you a little bit about is your love and your passion for mission work. You were sort of one of the first people to enlighten me with that possibility. And I've heard you mention on one of your shows that that's something that's actually been instrumental in keeping you in the profession.
Yeah.
So could you talk a little bit about that side of the equation?
Yeah, I will say before I even get to the mission trips, because that is like central to who I am. It saved me in this career, honestly. So it's really important. But I will say one of the reasons why I don't do a lot of these types of like, let's get interview Andrew, is because I would push back. I'm not an expert on a lot of things. I know what I know. I don't know what I don't know. But I feel like I have seen so many amazing people through the podcast who have given me just enough to be dangerous, to know some stuff. And so what I don't email me about everything, guys. I don't know everything, but I will be happy if you want to email me to point you in the right direction, because we have thousands of professionals in this industry who are the leaders like in the world that we have access to. And that's awesome. So I'll be happy to connect whoever wants to be connected to them. So mission trips. Yeah. You know, what's funny is, all right. I won't get like too like historical on it, but there was a point. So I had gone through, my first year out of dental hygiene was a really, really rough year because you just don't know anything. Like you think, and then you get in and you're in this environment that is maybe there's, for me, there's too many people and there's personalities. I didn't expect to have to manage personalities in an office, like my coworkers' personalities. I didn't expect that. Like I expected me and the patient, we're going to do our thing. And so about a year after I moved to a different company, a private practice, and I enjoyed that one, but there was still some things that I'm like, gosh, I've done the things that I thought I was going to do. I'm not really feeling fulfilled. There's something still missing. It's this rat race, right? We're in this grind. We're doing the same thing over and over again. And I didn't understand at that time about the community aspect of it. I didn't understand, beyond the operatory, like what impact I might be having on somebody. The oral cancer thing was not on my radar whatsoever. And so I was like, you know what? Let me just go. I went on, I don't know if you guys know Dental Town, but there's a Hygiene Town, is like a blog forum, whatever it was. And I was on there and I was on the dentist side. And I put in like dental mission trip or something like that, or maybe it's like a dental CE trip or something like that. And I started seeing how many different mission trips there are out there. And so I said, you know what, if I have this question, other people have this question. So I actually created a lecture. I thought I wanted to be a speaker, which I don't, but I thought I did. And I created a lecture on the different types of dental missions there are, because there are actually several of them. So one is kind of the religious affiliated mission trips. awesome, great. If you're a part of that religion, go with them, do the good works, right? There's also ones that are just altruistic. There was one that was in Belize. I can't remember the name of it, but I mean, this was 10 years ago, so I don't know if they're still actually even doing it. But what they would do is they would go and they would say, we're going to take over like this part of the town and we're just going to do all of the dentistry. And it's so great. And there's pros and cons to that. I mean, the huge pros, obviously, a lot of dental treatment was rendered. One of the kind of issues, by the way, though, is there's an environmental impact of having a bunch of foreigners go to a place. And I think that people weren't really, expecting that. But anyways, so there's the altruistic, the complete, like you're just selfless, whatever. There's also the CE dental mission trips, right? So you go and one of the ones I ended up joining was actually Guatemala. And this doctor was educating. So he had, I think it was 2 days of didactic on how to do basically extractions, surgical extractions, sutures, all that kind of stuff. And then they did 3 or 4 days of clinic, and there'd be like 30 doctors that would come down and they would just be, taking all these teeth out, and which is great for that community, right? Because you can get them out of pain. Well, they also opened up a hygiene component for that. And they said, look, if you want to learn how to do local anesthesia, like we're going to put you in the fire. Like you're going to be doing hundreds of injections a day. By the time you're done with that, I mean, and not only that, we're going to let you do kind of some weird ones. Like you're not going to just be doing, infiltrations. Like we're going to be doing some deep blocks. And so it was such an opportunity for you to get CE credit and then also serve the community, which is great, right? And so there's also one where it's like happy fun time. Let's go on a vacation. And then, by the way, we'll just do a little 2 hours here. We'll pop in, and say hi, and this is how you brush your tooth, and then leave. And call that a mission trip. So there's that too. One subset I didn't distinguish at the time was there are types of mission trips where the group that you go with is just bouncing around to different locations, just kind of whatever works for them. And then there are the types of ones that we're going to go back and service the same community over and over and over again. And so after I had done the one in Guatemala, the more CE one, I felt good. I felt really good, but I felt like I wasn't quite doing the service part. I wasn't giving myself that the way I thought that I probably should have. And so I found another one actually from one of my friends who I met on Hygiene Town. And the group it's called Somos Amigos, somosamigos.org. And they were saying like, look, just fly yourself here. I think at the time it was like $300, might be $500 now. You're going to live at someone's house. We have a clinic, but you're out in the middle of nowhere and you're going to be taking bucket showers, and it's cold and it's on top of the mountain, and you're going to be seeing both Dominicans and Haitians, like you're right on that border almost. And so you're going to see just like all sorts of different things. But they do have chairs, they had overhead lights, they have suction, they have all this stuff. And I went there 4 or 5 times. And Frank, who runs that organization, really kind of just helped me understand the impact that they were having on the community, and how that community is actually the one that's leading that dental group, not Frank, the organizer of the nonprofit. And I thought that was huge. That was kind of eye-opening. And I said, you know what? I love this. And that's why I kept going back. You just kind of feel good. It recharges you. I was feeling burnt out. I was feeling lost. I was feeling confused. I feel like I wasn't using the extent of my skill set, all of the different things.
Mm-hmm.
But then something happened. And this might have been 2019. I think it might have been like like pre-COVID. We went, and I don't speak Spanish, so I speak a little bit, not enough to actually do anything. So I have a couple things that I say to the patient. Okay, you can sit here. I'm going to open big, do all these things. And one of the patients connected with me with my not very good Spanish, but then they asked me a question that was too many words that I didn't know. And I had to call someone over and say, hey, can you help me communicate with this person? Because I really connected with them. And instead of feeling like I connected with someone, I did good, I did the things again, it felt empty and I felt bad. The listeners of the podcast know I used to live in the Philippines. I lived in the Philippines for a couple of years. I speak the language. I do all of these things. And so I decided right then and there, I'm like, look, I'm going to do what Frank does, but I'm going to do it in the Philippines. And we're going to find the most remote location we can find. and we're going to have sustainability. We're going to measure health outcomes, just like my DSO did. We're going to have all these systems in place. It's going to be a great learning experience. It's a great service experience. But also, I want it to be fun. The Philippines is awesome. It's one of the best cultures I've ever been around. Loving, kind, inclusive, all of the things. If you don't speak the language, a lot of them speak English. So you're going to be in good shape. And so kind of, I think what you're alluding to is like, I have this this mission trip that I'm starting. I'm actually going to go here in April to a small little island called Linapacan. It's a very small island between Coron and El Nido. And you have to take a boat to get to it. And it's one of those Philippine, they call them bancas. That's the double outrigger boat, and crystal clear water, beautiful, beautiful environment. But this population, they have a health center, and I've seen it on Google Maps, and it looks like the ruins of yesteryear. Like it looks really not very kept up. And I know there's no dentist on the island. And so, my goal is I partnered with both the community and with a tour company. And I said, how can we give back? Like, what else do they need? And so I think we're going to try and build it out to be medical and dental, just like Somos Amigos does. But for this initial one, it's a lot of intake, a lot of what does our decayed, missing, filled teeth score look like for our 7th or 8th graders? And then we'll start treating the 3rd graders, and then we'll monitor this over the years. Are we making an impact? Because we can't do follow-up care, we're going to do very minimally invasive things. So glass ionomer sealants, silver diamine fluoride, basic education, brushing, probably not flossing, weirdly, but brushing technique, and nutritional counseling, partnering with the schools that are there to make sure that they have access to the toothbrushes. And part of this group that we're doing is, we're going to make sure that they are supplied enough until we can get there for the next year. If they don't, we can figure that part out. But really trying to figure out, first of all, is what we've been saying this whole time about silver diamine fluoride true? Or is it because now that we've raised their awareness because we put some stuff that might turn their teeth black, they do a better job with their home care and their nutrition? There's so many things that I want to just try and figure out about our preventive model to see if it's true. To see if if all the outside influences that we have here in the North America, if that's true, or is silver diamine fluoride and our glass ionomer sealants and restorative materials, what we think that they are.
Yeah.
So anyway.
I love that approach to it, because you're right. It's that sustainability piece, right? You're not going to see them again in 3 months. So if it's a year, you need to do what can hold them over till the next time.
Exactly.
I love that. I love everything about what you just said. Are Canadians welcome, either this trip coming or maybe some future trips that you're planning?
So let's talk about that real quick. So I would love, first of all, you guys know I love Canadians. I love Canadians. So my goal with this is not a profit center. And I need people to understand, I mean, there's obviously operating costs and stuff like that. And so this first trip is you fly yourself there and it's $1,500. You get 4 nights, 3 days, like all inclusive, basically island hopping, tours with this. All your hotels are paid for. I'll take care of all that with the $1,500. Now, so that's April 2024. I only have a couple spots left open. If anyone wants to, they can always reach out to me to see if there's any spots open. But for 2025, we're probably going to up the price a little bit, because there's like a few things I'm like, oh, I have to pay for that too. Oh, I pay for that too, right? Because yeah, exactly. You don't know until you start going through the process. But like you have to take a small little plane to jump from one island to the next, and then from the other island back to Manila. And so there's little things that you kind of forget about. But it's probably only going to be right around that $2,250, somewhere in there. It's going to be, and then also you fly yourself over there and get yourself home. It's not really all that expensive. It's pretty darn affordable. And I think the best thing about this one is like you're going to get a sense of Filipino culture in a way that you probably wouldn't another way. I love the Philippines. I mean, I talk about it all the time. Everyone's so sick and tired of me talking about the Philippines, but like almost every day I weave it into some sort of a conversation, or something I did in the Philippines makes me say things a certain way or whatever. I don't know. You'll love it just like I love it though by the end. And it's only a week. So, I mean, you'll just love it. Long
How
flight
long
though.
did you live there?
2 years. Yeah. 2002 to 2004.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm actually going to take my dad back. I'm really excited. So we're going in March too. And my dad's never been there. So I'm gonna say, all right, Dad, we're gonna go see the places where I was. This is where I picked mangoes from this tree. This is where that one dog chased me down the road. All those different fun things. So it'll be great.
That's going
I
to be
think
such a
it's so
special trip.
I know. And it's so inspiring how you took this opportunity from just learned experiences and you're just trying it out. Like, I think so many people get stuck in what they do every day because that's what they've always done. And they're scared to try something new. They're scared to fail, but I'm not saying you're going to fail, but just from the
I might.
obstacles that you've come across, it's like, that's how we learn. And the fact that you're just doing this and you put it out there, you're looking for help and support. And I think that goes a long way. And you don't realize how many people you've inspired from interviewing all the different people you have. You are such a humble, wonderful, wonderful human being. So yeah, I'll leave it with that. So I don't start to cry. I don't want to make you cry. You know, ugly cry is happening on the show here.
Yeah, like, this will be the first time anyway, it doesn't matter. So the thing about that though is let's talk about failure though, because I think that people have an unrealistic expectation of what happens when you fail. We've built up in our heads, or maybe emotionally, or maybe we've seen it, the worst possible outcomes if you fail at something. So in my case, what happens if I fail? I have 20 people that are going to go with me who had a terrible time. Okay. And I mean, assuming that there's nothing else, like, you know, we didn't get eaten by sharks or whatever. There's no sharks there, but like, you know, like something like there's something catastrophic. What's the worst that's going to happen? Right. And so we take that and we put it into like our offices. Okay. I heard about this really cool thing on a podcast. Patient A, you could benefit from this.
Yeah.
Let's monitor this. But I'm putting myself out there because I heard about it on a podcast. I might be wrong. What's the worst that's going to happen? It's not effective. The treatment's not effective. Okay. And I mean, that patient might not like you anymore. Okay. And right. We got to get out of our own heads. We have to fail. We have to fail. There was one, oh my gosh. Okay. So in hygiene school, I wasn't the best student. I think that's pretty well documented. There was one test I remember in radiology that I told my teacher, she's like, well, how do you feel you did on that test? I'm like, well, I got, you know, an 87%. She's like, well, you don't know. Maybe you got these ones right. I'm like, no, I know what I know and I don't know what I don't know. And she said, and she's great. She's like, you got exactly 87. I'm like, I know, because I didn't know those answers, right? And I failed that part of it. I feel really bad about that. But then the next time we took those same questions, like I knew the answer to them, right? Like we have this process that we all have to go through, that the scale of failure might feel a little bit different, but we have to fail to be able to learn. If you are someone who can just like hear something one way and automatically do it, I mean, wow, good for you. Like that must be a charmed life. But for the rest of us, normal people, like that's just not what it is. We have to, I mean, my wife's an amazing cook, an amazing baker. I'll tell you what, she doesn't always get the recipes right, you know, and there's times when I've taught, she doesn't like this.
Careful.
No, it's fine. Like, but it's not very often. Well, but this is go back to the whole mentality thing is she cooked something, it's probably 6 months ago or whatever. And it's something that we'd had before. I said, this was not your best version of this. What did you do differently? And part of it was, I think it was like a soup or something like that. Part of it was like, she said, okay, well, I did this part of it different. I used the Instapot thing or whatever, instead of on the stove, or since we're in Florida, we have different ingredients that we can use and different like suppliers for those ingredients than what we had before. So there were definitely some things that happened. But I'll tell you what, she was not happy I said that, you know, and she was in her brain about it of like, I've failed. And I'm like, no, baby, like, it's fine. Like, don't worry about it. But if I didn't tell you this, you'd keep making this garbage for, you know, every time I have to eat it. I don't want that. So we have to be open to failure. We have to. I think I just alienated the whole entire audience with that story, but we have to be honest. We have to be able to accept failure for what it is. A momentary lapse in either judgment or opportunity or whatever. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's going to be okay. Almost nothing that we do is life and death. You're going to be all right.
Yeah,
That is such good advice.
I agree. I just did that with the meatballs. I just veered from the traditional meatball recipe and different one. And I got remarks about that. Don't with a good thing. Right?
I mean,
so I understand, but and not I you know, we have you for so little time today. I want to touch on another hot topic that can up, is about this universal license in the United States for state, because we have, you know, different license qualifications in Canada too. Some people are allowed to do anesthetics, some people are allowed to prescribe their own radiographs. And so, like, how do you feel about that? And where do you think we're going? And do you think it's going to cross the border?
All right, here we go. Here we go, guys. Here we go. Here we go. All right. I want to preface this by saying the majority of the people that I interacted with as a leader in DSO were actually a lot of foreign trained doctors turned dental hygienists in Florida. I have an immense love for my doctors and for the people who have changed their whole entire life, uprooted themselves to relocate. Great. However, the way that it worked in Florida and what they're trying to also enact in several states, I think might be different than Canada. So if you guys can ask clarifying questions in the chats, but just let me know. Essentially what Florida was trying to do, or actually did do, as I said, if you're a doctor, it doesn't matter what country you're from, you can come and be a hygienist. You do have to sit for the board exam, but it's not like you have to go through 2 years of school or any sort of remediation. And so what we were finding is that there were several countries, and I also want to say, if you're from these countries, like I'm not saying that this is exactly what the program is, but for example, if you're coming from El Salvador, you might have a perio program in your dental program, right? Like embedded in, you might be doing perio. You might learn about staging and grading. You might know all of these things. Great. But if you are from Costa Rica, you might not, you know? And so there's all these variances in what a dentist is across the world. And I think that there's accelerated programs. There's a lot of like on the job training in a lot of parts of the world.
Mhm.
And so, you know, you can't just say foreign trained doctors come be hygienists. Here's your license, because that takes away a lot of like the perio aspect, which is a major part of our job as hygienists. And also, what do they learn about preventive? If they don't understand what the products are that we have,
Mhm.
there's no way they're going to be successful. And to illustrate a kind of a point with this, not only products, but instruments. So we have a cassette, a standard cassette for our kind of more preventive cleanings versus our therapeutic cleanings, right? So we have, sorry, don't roast me for the word cleanings. Sorry. Anyways, so we have our ProPs and SRPs and peri-maintenance. And so I was coaching a hygienist and she was really struggling. And I would go back after I'd, kind of explore the pockets. I'm like, did you even clean these teeth? They don't know how to use an ultrasonic. I'm not saying like all people, but like people from this country that she was at didn't know how to use an ultrasonic. I said, okay, let's just sit down. Let's open up this cassette. Let's talk about what all these instruments do. Very, very basic of like, this is our first quarter of hygiene school, right? So we opened it up. I said, okay, what does this one do? And it was an anterior sickle. And she said, it cleans the teeth. I said, yes, you're right. It does clean the teeth. But what part of the mouth does it? She's like, wherever you want. I'm like, great.
Mhm.
Put that one down. We have one called the 4R, 4L. It's pretty much a universal, right? I was like, what does this one do? She's like, it's for the lower teeth. I'm like, okay, great. And so I keep like showing her like a Gracie 13, 14, all these different ones. And I say, okay, where is this for? She's like, it's for the lower teeth. It's for the lower teeth. I'm like, okay, no, you don't even know what any of these instruments. So how can you be effective at your job if you literally know what 0 of these instruments do? And so my concern isn't so much about the foreign trained doctor becoming a hygienist. It's more of what
Where are they coming
standard do we have for all of these people?
Yeah.
I want them to have a job. I want them to have an opportunity. But if it's so part of my job before, as I sat on like the dental hygiene council for like the state of Washington, and my job was to protect the public. Like that's my biggest thing. It was like, is the public going to be hurt by allowing this type of a hygienist to get licensed in the state? And so that's always kind of like to my forefront. I'm like, these people are licensed and they're hurting people. I've seen the aftermath of what an uneducated foreign trained doctor can do. Now, the difference is I've also had some of my best hygienists were foreign trained doctors, because not only did they understand the perio, but they got those patients to do the restorative work too. And they got them to do the next step. They got the buy-in from the patients because like, I'm a doctor in my country, but this is what I'm doing. Those people, anything that hygienist said, they believed and they loved and they lived. And they got so much more healthy because of that. So there's the two kinds of like, there's the both sides of it. Like I really do think that there should be a pathway. It's just, it can't be just because you're a foreign trained doctor, you get a license. Like that's not the answer.
Well,
Right.
you're trained in hygiene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's very eye-opening because that is very different in Canada. We don't have that. So I didn't realize that that was what was going on. So I can see why that's something that you're passionate about, because you're right. There's no way to really standardize it or
Yeah.
control it. And
there
that's
should be,
concerning.
so the doctors coming from another country in the state of Florida, I think probably some other states too, have an accelerated pathway to become a dentist. We should just have an accelerated way to become a hygienist. You already have the foundational other stuff, right? But they should, like when they're looking at prereqs to be able to get into hygiene school, right? They look at them, they weight different ones. Okay, well, let's look at their prereqs. And then what did that, like, what was the description of that course that they took? Is it equivalent to our radiology course or whatever? And if it is, then award them that credit. They don't have to take that again. Let's take some of that stuff off their plate. Sure, absolutely, let's do that. But that's just not the standard. That's not what's happening. And so we do need some sort of a standard.
We do.
Mhm.
And there's such a need for hygiene in Canada and in the US. There is
Mhm.
such a need and there's lots of opportunity. I agree. I think there has to be some sort of standard across the board and a way to accelerate some of those individuals that do have this background. Let's figure out a way to work with them. But then also that, it's a good representation of what hygiene's about as well. Because
Yeah.
we have worked really hard to move our profession into, more prevention side and not just cleaning people and, doing the
Mhm.
basics, the getting rid of the 30-minute prophies. It's like we want to be able to do the right thing and the right services for our patients. So
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question before we finish up, because we only have a few more minutes, I know, left on our show, even though we could talk for hours. I want to talk about
Okay.
your podcast. So you were really one of the very first like dental hygiene podcasts that was out there for us, like the first bit for us to recognize, for us to listen to, for us to, get some excitement and enjoyment and to bring something back to our career that kind of ignited a lot of stuff. So, how did that even come? Like, I can only imagine what the story is, considering all the other things you've done, but also, how do you keep it fresh? Because after running for, this amount of time, how do you keep it real and keep the growing of the listeners?
Yeah, I mean, really good. That's a good follow-up question. Let me think about that while I tell you the rest of the story, because I don't think I've actually perfected that part. I think I've failed several times on that one, which, by the way, I'm okay with because failure's all right. Anyways, so all right. So here's the thing. I wasn't a real big podcast listener. My wife's always been like the early adopter of a lot of things with technology, and so she was listening to podcasts a lot. At the time when I was working at this particular DSO, I worked my 4 days. We did 4 10s. And then it wasn't uncommon that I would pick up a 5th and a 6th shift during that week. So I'd work not uncommon 50 or 60 hours. But then I'd also have to commute from one side of the state to the other, which is probably 3 to 5 hours kind of on average one way, and then go the other way. And I'd stay in a hotel overnight and stuff like that. It was fine. I was young. I was trying to make money, get ahead in life, all that stuff. Well, one day Allison said, my wife, she said, there's this comedian I listen to. You probably would really like his podcast. And his name's Pete Holmes. I liked it a little bit. I liked it. I liked how he thought about things, and it was a long form podcast. It was an interview podcast, and I liked kind of just where his brain was, just generally just pondering the world. And then there's another podcast called The Startup, and that was from Gimlet Media, who basically followed a guy around. They actually made a TV show about this, but they followed this guy, like recorded his whole life from starting as a podcaster and trying to build a podcast company, and saying like, okay, let me go into a pitch meeting and I'll record the pitch meeting of me getting shot down. And I'm going to put that on the podcast, and people are going to listen to me fail and sound ridiculous. And people are going to ask me a question that I'm like, I don't even know what that is. Like, because it's not his world. Right? He didn't live in that venture capitalist world. Right. So I listened to him. And I'm like, you know what? That's what I want to do. I want to create a podcast. There's nothing like this in dental hygiene. I want to create a podcast like empire. And let's see how that goes. And so then there was another podcast, a dental podcast, called The Dental Hacks at the time. It's now called the Very Dental Podcast. And Dr. Alan Mead runs that one. He said, hey, if anyone's thinking about becoming a podcaster or wants to do this, let me start a Facebook group for all of you people. And he mentioned that on the show several times. I was listening to his show. By the way, theirs was very well produced. I mean, sound quality, I think it was really, really, really top notch. And so in that group, he said, okay, here's someone that I listen to get better sound quality. Here's how I do this. Here's how I do that. He was very open about everything. I asked him a ton of questions. I went to that podcast movement, which is like a conference for podcasters. Like I've done so much to try and get like just better at the podcast game. And so when it was time to like start the podcast, I pretty much had a good idea of like where to go, how to edit, even though I've never edited a podcast before. I'm like, I could figure it out, you know, and do all these different things, how to do kind of remote recordings. And so then I found a partner for that. And I mean, we went gangbusters for, you know, what, 5 years together. And we grew it into a network. And so we added more and more shows. And then we added more, we had just the Wednesday show for a really long time. And then we added a Friday shorter show. And then we added the Monday super short show. And so we like kind of kept evolving over time. As far as like trying to like shake it up and like, you know, not be stale with it, that's the hard part, right? Because I think you even go not RDH on one roof, because that's like the best conference ever. They never do this, but all the other ones, they, you know, you get these perio courses. It's like ultrasonics again by the same person that's been, you know, doing it for 55 years. I don't know if that I'm going to go to that course anymore at this point in my career. So how can we then have a new take on ultrasonics? Like what's the new thing and who's doing it? And so I might get that same speaker because they do know more. They just don't present that way. And so like, let's get them on. Let's ask them a little bit different way of asking the question so to give a different answer. I do look a little bit at some of the, I'm not really on social media. That sounds bad, but so I don't really know like any of the TikTokers. I don't really know any of the Instagram, famous Instagram, you know, dental hygienists. I don't really pull from that, you know, that group of people. And the podcast is generally trying to be a little bit educational. I know it's more like me. I'm not like super serious about stuff, but like it is meant to like give you some idea of some stuff. And so, you know, I look around to see like, we had this one hygienist, her name's Renata. She did this thing where she had some palatal expanders, and I did happen to see her on Instagram, and she has a huge diastema now. And like you heard before and after, I'm like, what are you doing to yourself? But it's, you know, for airway and all these, it's all the whole thing. Listen to the podcast. It's great. I'm like, that's fascinating. Let's talk about that for a minute. So there are things that come up that are new to me that I'm just like, let's do this. I mentioned this somewhere, I don't know, because we're in different points in our career. All of us are. Sometimes something will come up. We'll use ultrasonics again. Early in my career, all about ultrasonic courses, loved them. But year 4, I might not be as interested in them anymore. But I just did an interview with the new DuraTip. I don't know if you guys know that one. This is not sponsored, by the way, just it's the thing. With a new DuraTip, different technology. It's interesting. So everyone should go look that up. We don't need to keep talking about that. But there are new things that can happen. And so now, almost 15 years in, I'm like, all right, coming back to that. Let me listen to that again. So that's interesting to me. I do also look at like AGD. They have like course codes. And so I'll go through those and be like, okay, well, what are some of the CE worthy stuff? And so like ortho, oral surgery, stuff that hygienists wouldn't normally want to talk about. We'll do some airway stuff and myofunctional therapy, you know, salivary testing, salivary diagnostics. Of course, we've done that too. You know, all the different things that we, you know, that are just, I think that are relevant and maybe not like what we do every day, but are in our periphery. I try and find those ones just to kind of, plus remember, I'm doing all of these episodes, so I don't want to be bored. So I'm trying to find someone that's interesting to me too.
That's a lot of episodes. 3 a week.
It's a lot of, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of episodes.
You know what's great though is I when I moved over to the company that purchased the podcast, they still allowed all of the same contractors that I worked with before. You know, Katrina Sanders has been on the podcast for 3 years doing fastbacks perio. She's gonna come back for 2024. We are changing some of the formats. We change up every now and again. We're doing a new Ask the Experts thing for Mondays. That launched this year, 2024. And so we have like Tom Viola is going to be on there. Michelle Hudson's going to be on there. Valerie Dengler, who you guys may or may not know, she's really popular in the DSO world, but so she's going to do our DSO one. And so we have like local anesthesia, DSO, oral systemic, and Katrina's doing kind of more of a hodgepodge, just like whatever ones. And so, you know, I at the same time of like being like, oh yeah, like, you know, I'm so awesome or whatever, but like, it never has been me. Like you think about this, like, yeah, I might be the constant, but it's always been about these amazing people that come on, share their content that they've worked so hard to like refine and figure out and know the obscure answer to an obscure question that Andrew might ask. You know, like they know it to their soul.
Yeah.
And they just come on and just volunteer that information to the world. And that's just, I mean, I'm telling you, we have an incredible group of colleagues that are working with us that make that show successful.
Well, I want to say thank you for interviewing all these people. And you really have been a thought leader or thinking forward, because you interviewed Mayo long before it was even a thing. Like we were talking about that before we got on. But I know that there was a special episode that I know really triggered a very good emotional response with Beth. Beth, why don't you ask Andrew about that? Let's see.
For sure. Thanks, Carrie. And I'm going to try to ask this in the most professional way without making myself look like an idiot. But I'm so grateful for your podcast and, you know, for your ability to be curious about people and what they're up to and about the science, asking good questions. Like that is a skill, and you have mastered that skill, in my opinion. Again, I'm going to hold it together. But even just speaking from a personal level, back in 2015, when you started this podcast, I was feeling very flat. I was feeling a little bit disengaged, and I was on my maternity leave. So I just started to listen, and I listened to every single episode, at least for the first 3 or 4 years, and it's continued on. And it gave me, you mentioned getting enough knowledge to just be dangerous. And I think that that's what it did for me too. My mind just exploded, and I started to pursue different aspects of dental hygiene. I met Kathleen. I would never have had the courage to approach Kathleen to say, you need me in your life. But because of listening to all of the interviews that you did, I got that courage, and that's, you know, part of why I'm here today. Anyways, not about me, but I just wanted to thank you while I had this opportunity to do that. And you are someone who's very gracious and very humble. And on your recent Thanksgiving podcast, you said something that I was really hoping I could kind of capture for our audience today. And it was why you were grateful for the profession of dental hygiene. Could we end with you just giving us a little bit of what you had said on that episode?
The great thing about the podcast is like I can rehearse, I can edit, all my tears flowing. No one sees that. So I'll try and say this without like, you know, choking up and getting all emotional about it. But similar to like how I feel like I can weave in the Philippines in every contextual way possible, dental hygiene has given me everything. And I can't say that enough, because while I got lucky by falling into this profession, it has provided for my family. It has allowed me, from a personal standpoint, I'm kind of a wanderer. I like to go see new places and go try new things. It afforded me the ability. I went to Australia for the International Federation of Dental Hygiene Symposium. So my family, my kids got to see koala bears because of this profession. I mean, it's kind of everything, right?
Awesome.
So the friends that I have now, weirdly, are like my dental friends. I might have 2 non-dental friends that that I really keep in touch with and care about, but everyone else is dental. I just, for me, my family, our lifestyle, the ability to learn new things and help, even with my children, craft where they're going to go in their careers, which is not where I went. But having the ability to know that there's different things out there, it's huge, man, huge. So I can't say enough great things about our profession. Are there the things that are broken? 1,000%. But you know, if you're just in it for a little bit of and do the right things, like it's going to give you everything back.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I got goosebumps there. Yeah.
I got
It's
tears.
and a little tears. Yeah. But it's so inspiring, and really, like we often say this, like, you don't know what you don't know. So unless you're like exploring and listening and learning, you're going to stay stagnant, and you're not going to love this profession, right? You have to keep investigating and discovering and learning. So yeah, I know that I am now like subscribed to your podcast, and I've listened, and I think you're fabulous. So thank you so much for doing what you do. And, you know, I feel a little bit similar in the way, like with RDHU, like RDHU, when I first started it 15 years ago, it was never about me. It was always about you, RDHU. And I found the experts like the Anna Louises and the Beth, you know, Beth Parks and, well, she found me first, and Beth Ryerson and Joanne Jones and Carrie Lepacek and all those wonderful presenters who keep, you know, learning and keep wanting to grow this profession and share their knowledge. So it's just a wonderful platform when you have that and you can share all this. So thank you.
Yeah, happy. Thank you for having me.
Kath, did you want to share a little bit, talking about RDHU, do you want to share a little bit about what we have coming up? And while you're getting that going, there were some people just asking about the name of the podcast, and it is A Tale of Two Hygienists. Highly, highly recommend.
And I always send a follow-up email. So the after email, I will send that and I'll have all the links. I'll have the links to the podcast and anything else I can think of that's going to help. And I'll just do this. I'll do this real quick, okay? Because we're right at the end here. Is this showing you the right one?
Yes, did you share sound, Kath?
I did.
Perfect, you're good to go.
Hear it? You hear it, yeah? All right, so what we have coming up, our next show, the RDH View, we have the Brits are taking over, and these are a lovely group of dental therapists that we met in when we were on our trip with LM Dental in Finland. So they will be our guests on Friday, February 2nd. That's us at the Midnight Sun, which was amazing. That picture was taken at midnight sitting on a dock. That's them with Beth and I. So we're excited to have them with us. And, you know, we're in a new year and let's start this year off strong. We have our programs, our larger programs are in the calendars. So our programs like for myofunctional therapy, the practical program, our ortho elite program, all of our laser programs. So take a look. And if you ever need help with payment plans and all that, now's the time to start planning and we can get you registered and start helping you with that registration. Lab dentistry. So this is an app that's available to Canadian dental hygienists. Right now it's set up for Ontario. So if you're an Ontario dental hygienist, you can connect with operatories that are available for rent. So you can run your own independent practice through a dental practice. So it's kind of like the Airbnb for independent dental hygienists. Although now in Ontario, we all are self-initiated. So the possibilities are so huge for us. So we are doing we're having a night to collab, and that will be happening in just a couple of weeks. So I'll post that date and it'll be in the after email, but we're doing a 1-hour webinar with Collab. Beth and I will be the host with them, and we'll be talking about their app and just how to get set up for success, how to get your first 50 clients, all that sort of thing. So I'll send the date and the link to register. That'll be on through Zoom. So there won't be anything on our website. So it'll just be through the email or through our Instagram in our link tree. Okay. And then we have the Taking Control of Infection Control with Lynn and McCarty. It's a 3-part series and that's free as well. And that starts as well in a couple of weeks. Courses are coming up this month. We have our radiography refresh with Christine Crawford. And this is a topic that's always great to dive into and to rediscover. Christine is a wealth of knowledge, and anyone who has taken her courses, just send us the most wonderful evaluations about her and how she's really helped them with their learning. We have the lovely Susan Woodley, who is going to be presenting More Than Just a Pretty Smile. It's a guide to professional whitening. Myself, for Ontario dental hygienists, going through our quality assurance program. All this will be in the follow-up email as well. I don't want to keep anyone here too long. We've got connecting the dots between tongue ties, myofunctional therapy, and orthodontics with Dr. Jo Hall. She is amazing. If you haven't watched any of her programs yet, we strongly recommend you. She is just life changing and practice changing. And then we have Dr. Mohanta, who is also very big on social justice and does a lot of volunteering as well. This course is on dental management of the medically compromised client. She really looks at different types of medications, the most popular ones, and what we might see in the operatory. Of course, our lovely Carrie Lepacek, Easy Steps to Integrating the AAP Classifications, and Carrie will help you walk through it. It can be a very overwhelming topic, so Carrie is there for you. And then this is again for Ontario. It just happens we have a few things happening for Ontario, but typically it's for everybody North America. And this is very much focused on the CDHO guidelines for documentation with Anna Louise Tolan, who is another wonderful mentor and coach. Influencing biofilm balance with oral probiotics with Lorraine Gambacore. She specializes in oral probiotics. She's amazing and very knowledgeable in this topic. Myofunctional therapy and the ADPI process. This is actually for myofunctional therapists. So if you are a myofunctional therapist, but trained perhaps with another group that wasn't specific on dental hygiene, Joe will walk you through the dental hygiene process of care and implementing myofunctional therapy into your practice. Or if you did take the course and you really haven't implemented it, this will be the perfect course for you. And then this is one that we're having this month at RDHU. So RDHU is our beautiful facility in Burlington, Ontario. And we've got Lorraine designing the Ultimate Perio program. And it's on Saturday, January 20th. We're going to be having AI genetics there. So testing to see if your clients, your patients are predisposed to dental caries or periodontal disease. We'll be doing some testing on that, and also Orovital as well. And then we also have an online version. So if you can't come in to see us in person, it's available online. Dental Hygiene Quarterly, it's our on-demand. So if you just want to take your courses on demand, Dental Hygiene Quarterly is for you. We have the winter 2023-2024 available, taking the stigma out of the dental practice, and oral pathology. All right, so special bonus feature again is with Collab. We're just so excited for them and the app that they have. Dental Hygiene Quarterly, if you are from Ontario, you can do the combination and have your QA coach with that as well. All right, this year's focus will be on the LM Dental Midnight Sun key opinion leaders that we met when we were in Finland. So we're super excited to be learning from all these wonderful specialists, and we're excited to share that with you. And that is it from me. So much more on the website. Alrighty.
Thank you everybody for joining us. Andrew, honestly, it was an honor to be able to interview you for the first time. We appreciate the knowledge. The feedback was amazing. I'm sorry I had internet issues. I dropped off and I'm back, but
we knew it was going to happen.
we jinxed it. We totally jinxed it. Anyways, better me than anybody else. Kath, there were a few comments that they wanted to have the link for his podcast, and lots of comments that they cannot wait to listen. So we'll make sure that everybody has that information. And Andrew is true. If you've got questions, reach out to him. If you've got topics you want him to interview or things to bring forth, please shoot them his way. He loves that information. And same thing with us. If there are people that you want us to interview on the RDH View, please send us an email and we'll reach out, because we are booking in late 2024, early 2025. So Andrew, it has been an honor. Thank you so much. And everybody, Happy New Year.
And thank you for staying on with us and for joining us, everybody. Happy New Year. Thanks again, Andrew.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Take care. Be well.